Welcome back to Z-Speed, and thanks for tuning back in. Today we'll be installing this aftermarket Y-pipe from Z1 Motorsports on our Nissan 350Z. So if you're interested in learning how to do that, just stay tuned. So before we can do the install, you do need to have your car up in the air so we can maneuver underneath. You can see I've used a combination of ramps in the front and jack stands in the rear. It just makes it a little bit easier and simpler than using all four jack stands. If you do have a combination of both, I recommend you try this. You can get your car up in the air a lot quicker. So before we get started, let's go ahead and see what's in the box. So this is a pretty neat setup here. They've got a molded foam in here to keep everything in place and keep it from rattling around and getting chafed or scratched up. You can see this is a beautiful little Z1 logo that's tack welded onto the outside of this part of the Y-pipe here, and the welds are looking really excellent here. I'm really impressed with the welds. It also comes with gaskets, and I got a couple extra with mine, but also I went ahead and purchased hardware, and I would recommend, if you can afford it, that you buy extra hardware, because over time your hardware on your exhaust does get heat soaked and tends to deteriorate. So if you can pick up new hardware, do so. It'll really improve the install. So you can see the pipes are nicely wrapped here so they're not going to get scratched up, and we have the clamps to hold everything together. So this will be replacing a stock Y-pipe in the 350Z. I have a Tomei exhaust and Motordyne art pipes, so this should really improve the flow, and the sound might be really loud here. We'll see. We'll do a test at the end. So let's briefly discuss the plan of attack here. It should be relatively the same for any type of exhaust setup. Of course, I mentioned this was a Tomei earlier, but no matter what type of exhaust you're running, you should have obviously the exhaust head, and then you're gonna have a mid pipe somewhere down here. Here's my mid pipe right here, and then it's going to attach to your Y pipe. So I'm going to show you the two bolts right here that attach to the Y-pipe, and this is my stock Y-pipe. So here are the two bolts right here. So that should be pretty easy to remove those. And then there's four bolts up front. There's two on each side of the Y-split here that are hooked up to my Motordyne art pipes. Whether you're running aftermarket pipes or your catalytic converter, it'll be the same, two on each side. So we're talking a total of 6 bolts here. So that's really not a lot of work at all. And once you unbolt all 6 of these nuts and bolts here, this thing should just slide right out. So this should be a pretty simple and straightforward install. All right, I found it a little bit easier to come from behind this W brace. We'll call it a W brace that's below the exhaust system here. And I'm going to use a 6 to 8 inch extension with a 14 millimeter extended socket, because we have these elongated studs that are coming off of the factory Y pipe. So we'll need an extended socket to completely get these nuts off of these studs. So that's what I'm doing right here. Now you can get up close and personal with an opening wrench and get right up on the nut and break it loose that way. I just found it a little bit easier to come in from behind this brace here and break them loose. You can see I did it pretty quickly here. So now I'm going to go ahead and go to the driver's side and break this one loose. Now, we don't have down here in the Southeast a lot of use of salt. Usually they use sand, so we don't really have a lot of corrosion down here. So if you're in an area where they use salt, or you have a lot of rain and you've got some rust or corrosion On your undercarriage, I'm going to recommend that you use some PB Blaster or some type of penetrating oil to go ahead and pre-lubricate all of the nuts and bolts that are holding your Y pipe on. All 6 bolts, spray them down, give them about an hour or two to soak. If you're having corrosion issues, you can see my undercarriage is in pretty good shape here, so that wasn't necessary for me. But now I'm just got them broken loose. I'm just going to spin the nuts off the studs here, and we're going to leave the studs attached to the exhaust system for now. We're going to go ahead and move towards the front of the Y pipe now and remove them from the Motordyne ART pipes. But you can see it'll be pretty easy to slide the exhaust system straight back off the studs and disengage the Y pipe from the exhaust system. Okay, next up, we're going to break these two 15mm nuts off of these bolts here that hold the Y pipe to your aftermarket pipes or your catalytic converters, whichever you're running. I'm using a 15mm mountain wrench here. These things are great for getting into some tight spaces. I'll leave a link below for these, but break both sides loose, and then we're going to remove them off the studs once we get the other side loosened up as well. And if you're wondering what all that orange gasket maker is, that's some copper gasket maker, which is really great for sealing exhaust leaks. And I have a bit of an exhaust leak because if you can see here, the flange on the stock Y pipe is very thin and slightly uneven versus the Motordyne ART pipe flange, which is very thick and very flush. So I had a bit of a leak, and I was able to seal it using that copper gasket maker. Now, good news is you're not going to need any copper gasket maker for this new Y pipe install. This thing has got a huge thick flange that's nice and flat and mates up well to your existing catalytic converters or aftermarket exhaust with no leaks at all. I had no problems with the brand new gaskets only in the hardware, so you're not going to need to worry about gasket maker here, but that's what I had to use for my old stock Y pipe to get to seal up correctly. Okay, before we begin the install of the new Y pipe, you want to make sure you remove your old gaskets off your catalytic converters or your test pipes, whatever you're running here. You can see mine are actually glued in here to my Motordyne ART pipes because I had to use so much RTV to get that leak fixed we talked about a minute ago. So make sure that these surfaces are really clean. You might want to take a razor to them or a little bit of Scotch-Brite pad to clean it up. You can see this flange is nice and clean and ready to go. This is my Tommy exhaust flange right here. It's ready to roll, but I'm gonna have to clean all this up before we install the new Y pipe. So let's compare the stock Y pipe to the Z1 Motorsport Y pipe. Completely reworked it is what they've done here. Look at how restrictive and sharp the angles are on the stock Y pipe to your new Y pipe here from Z1 Motorsport. It's got these very elongated pipes coming off of your catalytic converters, and the merge point is much smaller here. You can see that it just comes to a very small little tip that hooks to your exhaust. So they've pretty much eliminated all those sharp angles coming off your stock Y pipe, and they just give you much better laminar flow from your catalytic converters to your exhaust. I mean, this is going to vastly improve how fast your exhaust gas gets out of your car, which is going to increase your horsepower a little bit. So better flow dynamics is what you're looking at here. Completely reconfigured. You can see that there's just way too many sharp angles on the stock Y pipe compared to this nice elongated aftermarket Y pipe. Now these little sharp angles right here, I'm going to show you a picture of what it looks like when you pull off this heat guard here. It's even worse than you can see here. Look at this. Look at these little sharp, smaller angles right here compared to your aftermarket pipe. Totally different. This is way more restrictive, this stock Y pipe is, than your aftermarket Z1 Motorsport Y pipe. So this is going to really improve your gas flow coming out of your exhaust here. Unbelievable how small that stock Y pipe is. Also wanted to show you the flange difference. Look at the stock versus the Z1 Motorsport flanges. Much thicker flanges on the Z1 Motorsport, and so that there's much less warping on these flanges compared to the stock. Way better design. Now let's do a little test fit before we place it on the vehicle. You just want to make sure your pipes fit together well, and these things fit like a glove. I mean, this is great. There's not going to be any leaks here. And you can see it swivels a little bit, so you have a little bit of adjustment. So when you hook it up to your catalytic converters or your test pipes, that you can move these around a little bit to get them to fit just right. No problems here at all. So then you're going to throw the clamps on and tighten them down after you put the bolts to the flanges here. So yeah, very nice setup here. Everything fits perfectly. Also, the merge pipe has an O2 bung that comes pre-welded in there, which I'll be using for my O2 sensor for my air-fuel ratio gauge that I've got. And also check these welds out. Very nice welds. Well done. High quality welds here. Beautiful work. You're not going to be disappointed with this Y pipe, that's for sure. High quality here. Okay, so essentially you're going to make sure that you get your new gaskets. There's one 3-inch gasket and two 2.5-inch gaskets that go on the collecting pipes versus the 3-inch that goes to your merge pipe. And you're going to be placing your bands in this configuration, and your O2 bung will be facing towards the driver's side and the logo will be facing down. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and bolt up the Y pipe to the exhaust and to the catalytic converters or test pipes, wherever you're running. But I've got a really good tip for you here. The tip is, do not pre-assemble your Y pipe like I did right here. See, I've got the collection pipes hooked to the Y bifurcation, and I've got the clamps hanging on loosely. You don't want to try to do it this way because it's just too bulky, and I ended up playing around with it and having some issues getting it to line up. You see, I'm kind of dropping my gasket, and I actually do drop it and then have to pick it back up. It's just way too much bulk trying to do it this way. It's so much simpler to assemble it one piece at a time. So what I mean by that is to take the little Y bifurcation and attach that to your exhaust first, and it's very small and super light and easy to bolt up by itself. I mean, it was just a breeze once I did that. And you just bolt this part up first, and then you're going to add each of the collection pipes separately, one at a time. And the whole thing is super stable. Once you put the Y bifurcation part up, you can go ahead and add each collection pipe on with ease, and then bolt everything up. So much simpler to do it in a 3-step process, just much simpler. So try that trick. I think it'll really help you out with the install. Then go ahead and snug up all of your hardware. I don't have any torque specs for you. I just made sure everything was nice and snug, and you're going to come back later on and tighten everything again after you run it for a couple days. But you see the bands right here with the bolts facing outwards. You want it to be in this configuration. It's easier to tighten up the bands that way. And now all we have to do, I'm going to put my O2 sensor in, but yours should be plugged right there. But all we have to do now is basically check for leaks. So once you get everything snugged up, we're going to go ahead and turn the car on, and we can go ahead and check for leaks. It's just a lot easier assembling it in the 3-step process. So it's easy to check for leaks by placing your hands up by the flange. Obviously you don't want to touch it because it's going to burn you for sure if you do, but just place your hand or cup your hands around the flanges. Also check around the bands that you tightened up here. And then last but not least, check the Y bifurcation where it hooks up to the exhaust. You just don't want to grab it. Don't do that because you're going to burn yourself, but just cup your hand and you will feel air flow if you've got a leak. It will be very obvious because it's such a high velocity coming out of there. You'll feel the leak, so you'll just have to tighten everything up if you do feel a leak, but I didn't have any leaks at all. And this thing is so sturdy and nice and rigid up in there. Once you get it all bolted in, it's nice. Okay, let's go ahead. She's warmed up. Let's give it a couple revs and see what she's sounding like here. Okay, now it's time for a little road test. So as you just heard, this Y pipe really complements this entire exhaust system. It really sounds healthy now. It's very affordable at $350. I think it's a good addition if you're looking for a Y pipe, well built. I'm not sponsored by Z1 Motorsports. This is just my opinion. I think this is a very good alternative to the more expensive Y pipes that are out there. It's very well constructed. So if this video helped you out, don't forget to give me a big old fat thumbs up. And until next time, you know what to do. Just keep on repairing.